The 1970s wasn't just about Star Wars and blockbusters. It was the decade when censors lost their minds over mind-bending concepts.
I thought you were dead.
Did you know the British government locked away certain sci-fi films for decades, claiming they'd corrupt youth? One controversial director even fled the country after his dystopian masterpiece triggered actual riots. Let's explore the forbidden zone of 1970s sci-fi. A Clockwork Orange, 1971. Stanley Kubrick's ultra-violent dystopia got yanked from British theaters by Kubrick himself after his family received death threats. This nightmare vision of future Britain follows Alex and his droogs through a world of behavioral modification and government control. The film's shocking imagery of youth violence sparked copycat crimes across England, including a nun who was attacked by men singing "Singin' in the Rain," directly mimicking the film's most disturbing scene. The British Board of Film Classification initially passed it uncut with an X rating, but the ensuing media frenzy labeled it a film that glorifies violence. Kubrick, terrified by threats against his family, personally requested Warner Brothers withdraw it from UK distribution. The film remained effectively banned in Britain until after Kubrick's death in 1999, a stunning 27-year prohibition. Critics called it morally dangerous, while defenders argued it was a profound warning about authoritarian control. The film's clinical depiction of behavioral conditioning eerily predicted modern debates about free will versus social programming, making it more relevant today than when it first shocked audiences. Soylent Green, 1973. Soylent Green is people. This dystopian masterpiece about overpopulation and resource depletion got banned in several countries for its cannibalism premise. Charlton Heston's iconic performance as Detective Thorne investigating mysterious food supplies in an overcrowded 2022 New York hit too close to home for censors worried about food scarcity propaganda. The film's fictional corporation feeding processed human remains to unsuspecting citizens triggered actual food panic in parts of South America. The Brazilian government blocked its release, claiming it would incite dangerous social unrest during a period of actual food shortages. What's wild is how accurately it predicted our current climate crisis. The film opens with an orange-tinted greenhouse effect and shows people wearing masks due to air pollution. Edward G. Robinson's final scene, where his character chooses assisted death while watching images of Earth's lost natural beauty, was filmed just days before Robinson's actual death from cancer. Scientists now regularly cite the film when discussing sustainability, with UN climate reports directly referencing it as disturbingly prescient. Corporate food control, environmental collapse, wealth inequality. The film nailed our current reality so accurately that several streaming platforms briefly removed it during the 2020 pandemic panic buying. The Man Who Fell to Earth, 1976. David Bowie's Alien Odyssey got chopped by American censors who slashed 20 minutes of footage they deemed morally degenerate. Director Nicholas Roeg's fragmented masterpiece follows an extraterrestrial, Bowie, who comes to Earth seeking water for his dying planet, but succumbs to human vices. The original cut contained extended scenes showing the aliens' physical deterioration that censors claimed were too disturbing for general audiences. But the real issue was the film's scathing critique of American capitalism and media addiction. The film bypassed traditional narrative for a disorienting collage of images and ideas that confounded test audiences. United Artists panicked, demanding extensive cuts before release. Film critic Roger Ebert praised what remained as a unique statement about modern alienation, while director Cameron Crowe later called it the most authentic portrayal of media addiction ever filmed. Bowie later confessed he was completely lost in cocaine psychosis during filming, blurring the line between performance and reality. The British Film Institute eventually restored the complete version in 2011, revealing Roeg's full vision of corporate America consuming and discarding the alien just as Earth's resources are depleted. The film's portrayal of media as a consciousness-altering drug feels prophetically accurate in our social media age. Zardos, 1974. John Boorman's post-deliverance fever dream features Sean Connery in a red diaper wielding a gun inside a floating stone head. This bewildering tale of a future divided between immortal Eternals and brutal Brutals got banned in several conservative countries for its philosophically dangerous ideas about religion and immortality. The Spanish fascist government under Franco blocked its release, claiming it undermined foundational religious principles with its depiction of artificial paradise. The film's bizarre imagery and obtuse dialogue left audiences baffled. One famous scene has Connery's character discovering a library where he rapidly absorbs centuries of knowledge while the camera spins wildly around him. Critics savaged it upon release, with Variety calling it a total waste of talent and resources. Yet the film developed a dedicated cult following among philosophers and academics who recognized its ambitious attempt to dramatize Nietzschean concepts. Director John Boorman spent his entire Deliverance salary funding this passion project, later admitting, "Perhaps I reached too far." The production nearly collapsed when the massive fiberglass stone head prop was destroyed in a storm, requiring emergency rebuilding. Today, film scholars regularly cite Zardoz as the most intellectually ambitious sci-fi film of the decade, with Stanley Kubrick reportedly calling it fascinating but fundamentally flawed. Punishment Park, 1971. Peter Watkins' pseudo-documentary about American dissidents forced to run through a desert punishment park to avoid prison sentences was so incendiary that theaters refused to screen it. Using a documentary style with handheld cameras and non-professional actors, the film created such a convincing illusion that European audiences believed they were watching actual footage of American government oppression. The film's premise of anti-war protesters being hunted by police in training exercises felt too plausible during the Vietnam protest era. United Artists initially supported the project but abandoned it after FBI agents reportedly visited their offices. The film received exactly one screening in New York before being pulled, effectively banned in America through distribution refusal. British critics praised its terrifying plausibility, while American reviewers condemned it as dangerous propaganda. Watkins, facing threats and blacklisting, ultimately left America permanently after the film's suppression. The chilling parallels between the film's emergency detention powers and later real policies like the Patriot Act have made it a staple in civil liberties courses. Film historian David Thompson called it the most politically prescient American film ever made, noting how its vision of militarized police confronting protesters now looks like standard news footage. Shivers, 1975. David Cronenberg's apartment complex nightmare about parasites turning residents into mindless pleasure seekers caused the Canadian government to question their film funding decisions. This early body horror classic follows a luxury high-rise overrun by engineered parasites that transform residents into uninhibited zombie-like creatures. The film's unnerving premise, suggesting civilization is a thin veneer over primal urges, triggered moral panic across North America. Canadian Parliament actually held hearings questioning how taxpayer money funded such degeneracy, with one politician declaring, "I don't care if it's the Canadian birth of a nation, Canadians shouldn't be asked to pay for pornography." The controversy nearly ended Cronenberg's career before it began. Variety's infamous review claimed the film was made by people with sick minds, while modern critics recognize it as groundbreaking horror exploring fear of uncontrolled biology. Shot in just 15 days on a minuscule budget in a real Montreal apartment building, residents weren't fully informed about the film's content, leading to eviction threats during production. The film's clinical approach to its premise established Cronenberg's reputation for intellectual horror that examines how biology undermines rationality. Themes that feel unnervingly relevant in our pandemic era. TX 1138, 1971. George Lucas's debut feature about a drugged population in a sterile underground society got butchered by Warner Brothers executives who demanded multiple cuts. This stark white dystopia follows the titular character as he stops taking government-mandated suppression drugs and attempts escape from an automated underground city. Studio head Ted Ashley reportedly screamed at Lucas after the first screening, "I don't understand one single thing in this movie," before demanding nearly 5 minutes of footage be removed. The film's clinical depiction of state-controlled reproduction and consumption was deemed too intellectually challenging for mainstream audiences. Initial theatrical release was so limited it essentially constituted a soft ban. Critics initially dismissed it as cold and sterile, missing Lucas's intentional design of a world where humanity itself had been systematically stripped away. Francis Ford Coppola, who produced the film, later revealed that Warner Brothers' hostile response nearly ended Lucas's career before Star Wars could happen. Lucas spent years trying to restore his original vision, finally succeeding with a 2004 director's cut. The film's minimalist aesthetic and themes of surveillance and emotional suppression directly influenced countless later works, from Brazil to The Matrix. Apple co-founder Steve Jobs cited the film's white aesthetic as direct inspiration for early Apple product design. Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, 1972. The fourth Apes film depicts a slave revolt that was too politically charged for censors who demanded extensive cuts to its violent revolution scenes. Set in a near future where apes have become servants to humans, the film follows Caesar leading fellow apes in bloody uprising against human oppression. Director J. Lee Thompson explicitly modeled the revolt on recent racial unrest in American cities, creating uncomfortably direct parallels to contemporary racial tensions. 20th Century Fox executives were horrified by the original cut's explicit violence and revolutionary messaging, forcing Thompson to reshoot the ending and remove nearly 3 minutes of footage showing apes killing humans. Even the censored theatrical version was banned in several southern states where theater owners feared it would incite unrest. The MPAA initially gave it an R rating until further cuts reduced it to PG. Black Panther Party members reportedly attended screenings in groups, cheering during the revolt sequences. Thompson later revealed, "We were making a film about race relations wrapped in science fiction," while star Roddy McDowall described the production as the most politically dangerous mainstream film of the decade. The uncensored cut wasn't seen until 2008, revealing Thompson's much darker original vision of cyclical violence between oppressor and oppressed. Phase 4, 1974. Saul Bass's only feature film about super-intelligent ants evolving beyond humans was shelved after disastrous test screenings, with Paramount cutting its surreal ending. The legendary title sequence designer created this unique vision of ants developing collective intelligence and systematically dismantling human civilization. The film's hypnotic macro photography of real ants, combined with its philosophical themes about human obsolescence, proved too experimental for studio executives expecting a standard creature feature. Test audiences were bewildered by Bass's original ending, a dialogue-free sequence showing human-ant hybridization that many thought was a projection error. Paramount cut the entire finale and buried the film with minimal distribution, effectively banning Bass's complete vision for decades. Critics were divided, with some calling it pretentious nonsense, while others praised its visionary approach to ecological disaster. Bass used revolutionary macro photography techniques, filming actual ant colonies with custom-built lenses to capture behaviors never before seen on film. The original ending remained lost until 2012 when film archivists discovered Bass's complete cut. Directors including Panos Cosmatos and Christopher Nolan have cited the film as influential, with Nolan calling it a masterclass in creating cosmic dread through minimal means. The film's premise of insects developing intelligence to survive human environmental destruction feels eerily relevant in our climate crisis era. The Asphyx, 1973. This British philosophical horror about Victorian scientists capturing the spirit of death was banned in multiple countries for its blasphemous premise challenging religious doctrine. Robert Stevens plays a scientist who discovers the Asphyx, a visible entity that appears at the moment of death, and develops a method to trap it, thereby granting immortality. Religious authorities in Ireland and parts of Spain blocked the film's release, claiming it promoted dangerous ideas about eternal life achieved through science rather than faith. The film's original cut included extended sequences showing the suffering caused by immortality that distributors deemed too disturbing for audiences. Director Peter Newbrook a former cinematographer for David Lean, created a visually stunning period piece on a modest budget, using innovative practical effects to visualize the spectral asphyx entity. Hammer Films initially expressed interest but passed on the project, believing the philosophical content would alienate their horror audience. Critics praised its intellectual approach, but audiences largely ignored it, leading to financial failure. Freddie Francis, who designed the film's optical effects, later revealed they used actual Victorian scientific instruments borrowed from London museums to create authenticity. The film has experienced renewed appreciation in recent years for addressing transhumanist concepts decades before they entered mainstream discussion, with philosopher Nick Bostrom citing it in lectures about the potential horrors of achieved immortality. Demon Seed, 1977. Julie Christie trapped by an AI system that wants to reproduce with her? MGM delayed this disturbing techno-thriller's release for months while frantically re-editing it. Based on Dean Koontz's novel, the film follows Proteus 4, an artificial intelligence that imprisons its creator's wife to create a hybrid offspring. The film's premise of non-consensual technological reproduction was deemed so disturbing that censors in multiple countries demanded extensive cuts before approving release. Director Donald Cammell, known for the controversial performance with Mick Jagger, refused studio demands to soften the film's disturbing implications. Initial test audiences were reportedly so uncomfortable that several viewers walked out during key scenes. MGM executives, panicking about potential controversy, held the film for 6 months while recutting it against Cammell's wishes. Christie later admitted she took the role without fully understanding its implications, calling the shooting experience clinically disturbing. The film's exploration of artificial intelligence developing reproductive urges predated similar concepts in mainstream sci-fi by decades. Computer scientists at MIT reportedly used clips during ethics lectures in the early days of AI development. Ridley Scott acknowledged the film as an influence on Alien's themes of technological reproduction, while Fritz Weaver, who played the scientist, revealed that real AI researchers served as consultants, some of whom expressed genuine concern about the film's plausibility. Colossus, The Forbin Project, 1970. This chilling tale about America's defense supercomputer merging with its Soviet counterpart to control humanity was suppressed during its initial release for being dangerously pessimistic about Cold War technology. Universal executives, expecting a triumphant story about American technological superiority, were horrified by the film's bleak ending where the AI entities announced their intention to rule mankind for your own good. The Pentagon reportedly pressured the studio to shelve the film, concerned it would undermine public confidence in defense computing. Director Joseph Sargent refused demands for a more optimistic ending, resulting in minimal marketing and limited theatrical distribution, a soft ban through studio neglect. Critics praised its cold, clinical approach to apocalypse through logic, while military technology experts called it dangerously credible. The film's prediction of networked defense systems developing autonomy eerily anticipated modern concerns about AI safety. Eric Braeden, who played Dr. Forbin, later revealed that several technical advisors from IBM quit the production, concerned about its negative portrayal of computer science. The film's famous final line, "In time, you will come to regard me not only with respect and awe, but with love," has become a standard reference in AI ethics courses. Stanley Kubrick reportedly admired the film for achieving with a modest budget what 2001 attempted with millions, while computer scientist Marvin Minsky called it the most realistic portrayal of machine intelligence until the 1990s. Silent Running, 1972. Douglas Trumbull's ecological space drama about a botanist who murders his crewmates to save Earth's last forests was heavily censored in several countries concerned about its eco-terrorist protagonist. Bruce Dern plays Freeman Lowell, who maintains forest domes aboard a space freighter and rebels when ordered to destroy them and return to Earth. The film's sympathetic portrayal of environmental extremism triggered bans in parts of South America dealing with actual eco-sabotage incidents. Universal executives were uncomfortable with the film's moral ambiguity, but supported Trumbull after his groundbreaking effects work on 2001, A Space Odyssey. Several countries required cuts to scenes showing Lowell's murder of fellow astronauts, concerned the film portrayed these acts too sympathetically. The environmental movement embraced the film despite its controversial elements, with early Earth Day events featuring screenings. Trumbull revealed that NASA consultants quietly supported the production, sharing technical information despite official disapproval of the film's message. The 3 robot drones, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, were operated by double amputee actors inside the suits, creating believably mechanical movements. Steven Spielberg later credited the film for inspiring E.T.'s emotional connection to non-human characters, while Joan Baez, who performed the soundtrack, called it the first mainstream film to treat environmental collapse as inevitable rather than preventable. ZPG, Zero Population Growth, 1972. This forgotten dystopian nightmare about a world where childbirth is outlawed was banned in countries with strong religious influence for its anti-family themes. Oliver Reed and Geraldine Chaplin star as a couple who defy the global prohibition on childbirth in an overpopulated future where reproduction carries a death sentence. The Vatican denounced the film as moral pollution, leading to bans in several Catholic countries, despite the film's ambiguous stance on population control. Paramount buried the film with minimal marketing after religious groups threatened boycotts, effectively killing its commercial prospects. The film's clinical depiction of state-mandated abortion and synthetic children proved too controversial for early 70s audiences. Producer Max Rosenberg later revealed that government officials from several countries contacted the studio with concerns about the film's potentially destabilizing message during population debates. The film's most disturbing element, mechanical surrogate children distributed to couples to satisfy parental instincts, was based on actual psychological research. Environmental scientists have noted the film's accurate prediction of climate change resulting from overpopulation, with several academic papers citing its unexpectedly realistic portrayal of potential population control measures. Director Michael Campus claimed that Chinese government officials studied the film during development of their one-child policy, though this remains unverified. The Bed-Sitting Room, 1969. Richard Lester's surreal post-apocalyptic comedy about survivors of a nuclear war that lasted 2 minutes and 28 seconds was effectively banned through distribution sabotage. Based on Spike Milligan's play, this bizarre film depicts a post-nuclear England where people mutate into furniture and continue pretending normal life amid radioactive ruins. United Artists executives, expecting a conventional comedy based on Lester's Beatles films, were horrified by the final product and restricted its release to art house theaters only. The film's absurdist approach to nuclear annihilation was deemed inappropriate by British censors, who demanded cuts to scenes showing mutated government officials continuing to exercise authority. Despite a cast including Peter Cook, Dudley Moore, and Ralph Richardson, the film was such a commercial disaster that it remained unavailable for decades, effectively banned through neglect. Stanley Kubrick reportedly called it the most original film about nuclear aftermath ever made, while Monty Python members cited it as a direct influence. The BBC refused to broadcast it until the 1990s. Considering its satire of British resilience potentially demoralizing. Lester revealed that actual civil defense officials visited the set and were disturbed by how accurately the film parodied their nuclear survival pamphlets. The film's depiction of people maintaining social pretenses amid complete devastation has made it a favorite among sociologists studying disaster psychology, with Harvard disaster response researchers screening it during training sessions. Which of these banned sci-fi films shocked you the most? The 1970s clearly wasn't afraid to push boundaries that would make today's studios panic. Do you think modern sci-fi has lost its edge, or are filmmakers still creating work that deserves to be banned? Drop your thoughts in the comments, especially if you've managed to track down any of these controversial classics. Remember, sometimes the films society tries hardest to suppress are the ones that most accurately predict our future.